We the People. I'm Dave Gallus, your host, and we have a very special guest today, Robert W. Lewis, local businessman, contractor. Robert, welcome to the show.
Thank you, sir.
Robert, you're Hispanic, and that's one thing that we don't seem to have representation of in our government, political system. So I'm trying to help people get on the TV to find out about them. You have a very interesting background. So could you give us a little history of where you started? I think you started in the States, then went to Mexico, but why don't you tell us about your life?
Well, I was born in California, and then my parents went to Puerto Vallarta, Mexico for their honeymoon. So they came back to the States, and my mom, who's from Holland, she's Dutch, they chose to go to Puerto Vallarta, and they opened up a little resort over there. It was little bungalows. I was 6 months old, and they built bungalows. They had about half a mile of beachfront property just north of Puerto Vallarta, and they had bungalows. And then also my father had a guide service, so he took people out deep sea fishing. He actually did tournaments, and then he also did some hunting, some local hunting, guiding there around the Puerto Vallarta mountains.
Okay.
And so I grew up in Puerto Vallarta. Spanish was my first language. We came back to the States when I was around 14.
Well, that must have been interesting. 13 years in Mexico.
In Puerto Vallarta, yeah. And it was a fantastic life. I mean, we had, well, compare now to PV when I was a kid, Puerto Vallarta.
It's touristy now, right?
Very touristy. We just call it PV.
Yeah.
But when I was a kid there, it was just naked beaches. We could ride our horses from outside of Puerto Vallarta to Punta Mita on the north end and down towards Mismaloya on the south end. Of course, now it's all resorts.
I've been down to PV. I remember there was I think it's called the Captain's Table. There was a restaurant that sat up on the just the outside edge of the cove that was that protected it. So
yeah, that's going towards Mismaloya, going south of Puerto Vallarta. Yes.
Okay.
Over there by Los Arcos, the islands.
Yes.
You can take your boat through there.
Beautiful country.
Yes, sir. Oh, it was very good experience growing up when I was a kid. I mean, it was open country, of course. Schooling was not an option over there. Try to skip as much as you could. I did it. I grew up on the beach. I grew up fishing. My father was a deep sea. He had 3 boats. We went after sailfish, marlin. You know, he actually used to trade Playboy magazines for fresh seafood to serve it for some of the customers that my parents had the bungalows. The front entrance to their little resort. He had bungalows. They were scattered. There were small bungalows, 1 or 2 bedrooms.
So they rented these out for people that wanted a vacation there?
Yeah, went on vacation to Puerto Vallarta. Some of them stayed a month long. A lot of Canadians would go down there and stay for the whole winter. And then my parents had a bar, a restaurant called the Charro Bar. And my dad was very involved in the local charro community. When I was a kid, we had a massive arena where all the bullfights and all the charros used to go over there and do rodeos.
What is charro?
Charros, cowboys. So
okay.
we have the American rodeo here.
Yes.
In Puerto Vallarta, we would have the same rodeos with the charros, wear the big Mexican hats and the spurs and the fancy glitter. And back when I was a kid, of course, they were allowed to carry a handgun, but somewhere in between all of that, Mexico said no more with the
Mexico
firearms.
wanted to control the people.
Exactly, and they got rid because I actually have pictures of my father wearing his charro suit right after a rodeo with his packing 2 sets of Colts.
Wow.
45 calibers, yeah, and I think they were first or second generation. I couldn't tell you.
So it sounds like you had an entrepreneurial background. Your parents were entrepreneurial, and you grew up with this. Now, it doesn't seem like your lack of schooling. I don't know how far you went when you came to the States, but it doesn't seem to have hurt your ability to make a business.
Well, when my parents had the bungalow and then we came to the States, my father bought a small ranch. And my mom had a motel in Santa Fe, New Mexico.
Okay, so you lived in Santa Fe?
Yeah. Well, I grew up in Leyva, New Mexico. That's where my dad had his ranch, and I went to school in Moriarty.
Okay.
But my mother had the motel in Santa Fe. And and of course, I used to work for my mom on the weekends, helping her at the motel, or I worked at the ranch, and then I worked with the local ranchers. So I just grew up working all the time. I mean, to have a weekend off was, Watching TV, I didn't have a TV when I was a kid, so that was one of the good things.
Probably kept you, what would you say, a good person.
Right, exactly.
You don't get warped by seeing what's on TV.
I didn't even know we had cable till like 83. ESPN, geez. I was not aware of it. Helping my mother run her motel and working with my dad at the ranch, or working with Ralph Gray or some of the other ranches, Tony Leyva around the community, Mr. Gonzalez. Every Saturday, Sunday was just work all the time.
Doesn't seem like it's hurt you.
No, sir.
You're never going to be poor, I'm sure of that.
I've worked my whole life.
Yeah, me
never
too.
knew any difference. So
I started out in Philadelphia with two newspaper routes, and I used to cut grass or shovel snow depending on the weather. But yeah, a man that works with his hands will never be poor.
That's a fact.
Yeah.
That's a
So
fact, yes.
So now you come to the States at age 14?
14. We were living in Santa Fe, and I went to high school in Moriarty. Then I was going to go to school at Solar Ross University, get a 2-year associate degree in farm and ranch management. And then my brother went to school here at NMSU. So my father said, well, why don't you go to NMSU and get your degree over there? Well, schooling was not my forte when I was a kid, but working was. So I tried it. I went to school, and a couple of years didn't pan out. I went back to Santa Fe, went to the local community college in Santa Fe, and then I was working for the Goodwin Cattle Ranch Company, and I got fired because I didn't want to wash the owner's Mercedes-Benz, because I told them I got hired to work over here and not maintain your vehicles. Yeah. Well, anyway, I ended up losing the job. I got hired on with John Koch, who was a roofer in Santa Fe, who was from California. Oh. I worked for John Koch, started I think at $5 an hour, if I remember correctly, because it was hard physical work. Yeah. And construction just came to me very simple.
So that was your start in construction?
In construction,
roofing.
Yeah.
That's a tough job.
Yeah, taking roll of 90-pound or 90 weight up a flight or one or two flights. Yeah. Boy, you have to be in good physical demand.
Just a couple years ago, my cousin and I built a garage, and it was a single slope roof, 36 by 36. I ruined my knee with shingling, but I know what you mean. Yeah, so that's tough work. That's a hard way to break in, but if you're a young man, yep, you can handle that better. So you were saying.
And I was working for John, and I don't know what happened. Within 6 months, I was working for John, and I was making $12 an hour.
Well, he saw your talents and your work ethic, I'm sure.
Yeah, that was the concept. I started working for John, and we had our supervisor that I worked under, and then slowly John kind of pulled me away and said, hey, I'm gonna get your own crew, and I'm gonna get you going with your own crew. And I didn't mind it. I was getting $1 raise a month working for John Koch.
Wow.
$1 within six months. I was overseeing the operation for John Koch.
So you had your construction background starting with John. You had your work ethic starting when you were a child. Mm-hmm. And now John recognized your supervisory skills.
Correct.
So this is probably how you got into wanting to have your own business.
And that's where my plan was to go back to school, but then I started realizing that I was making a very good living doing construction. I didn't want to be a roofer for the rest of my life.
Right.
And so from working for John Koch, I moved back to Las Cruces, and I ended up getting married. So it stimulated my brain to possibility get my own experience and start my own business down the road.
Okay.
I wasn't ready yet, so I moved from Santa Fe down to Las Cruces. I got married, and I went to work for a heavy equipment operator company where the Love's gas station is.
Okay.
Then I learned how to operate equipment. I already had previous experience working on equipment at the ranch and working with the county and some of the ranchers. Right. So I had experience as a heavy equipment operator, and I was making very good money there. And I went from making $16.75 an hour on a scale job.
Wow.
Working for J.W. Jones out of Albuquerque.
How long ago was this?
1986.
Wow.
Summer of 86. From a Friday making $16.75 with 10-hour minimum overtime to I went to work for Nan Deemer because I knew I wanted to get into construction. and I wanted to own my own business, but I wasn't ready yet, so I went to work for Dan Deemer, and I was making $3.75 an hour working for Dan Deemer from a Friday to a Monday.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Which was not a big deal because I've always been very conservative with my money, and I took 70% of that income and put it in the bank, and I lived on 30%.
Smart.
I went to work for Dan Deemer, $3.75 an hour. I focused, I was motivated, I wanted to understand the industry, and I learned, and Dan Deemer is a wonderful builder. I mean, just top-notch, perfectionist, and that was the main ticket. And
that's a heck of a jump, though. You went from $16 an hour just to $4 an hour.
$3.75 an hour.
It's like, holy smoke, you had a vision.
Yeah, from a Friday, working for J.W. Jones, they were going to move the crew up to Mountain Air to start another paving job, and they were going to put me on the asphalt side, and I told them, no, I'm going to go ahead and go work for Dan Deemer. And so I worked for Dan Deemer for approximately 3 years. Within, I want to say inside of a year, and I'm sure Dan can correct me on this, but within a year, I was supervising for Dan Deemer.
Not surprised.
And one of my, Dan did from custom home building to remodeling, and he specialized on both of those.
Okay.
And we learned the trade from the inside out. Outside of plumbing, electrical, concrete, we did everything else. Yeah, we did from the framing to some of the drywall and installation, depending on how big the job was, to all of our carpentry, all of our millwork, which is interior doors, exterior doors, baseboard cabinets, anything like that, to our own painting, staining, varnishing. We did it all in the house.
Was there any issues with union workers where you had a specific job or anything?
No. We were non-union with Dan Deemer. No, we were non-union with Dan Deemer, and he taught us everything. And it made a very good concept because when things slow down, when we didn't have a lot of work in front of us, he kept us busy finishing out a house.
That's a good boss.
When we picked up 2 or 3 remodeling jobs, then we went on the front end, the main crew, and then we subbed a lot of the work out to other trades. So it was a very logical. But I respected the fact that I learned how to frame, I learned how to do drywall, insulate a house, I learned how to paint and stain and varnish, install cabinets, countertops, plumbing on the surface. I respect plumbers. I have a lot of respect for plumbers. I respect electricians for their trade because they're dealing with electrical, and I've been zapped a few times.
Had your
I don't
specialties.
care. Plumbers, they understand the concept, but on the trade business, I learned, which is what I wanted working for Dan Deemer, to really know the trade inside and out.
And it sounds like you were learning management as well.
At the same time, yes, sir. Yeah, actually, one of my best ones is when my boss, Dan Deemer, went to Hawaii for 2 weeks and only called me twice.
You were running the show?
I was running the show.
Wow.
And I respect that. And he called me, everything's good? Yes, sir. I'll walk him through it. And he said, all right, I'll call you later.
He trusts you.
He gave me the walkie-talkie. We used to have the walkie-talkie radios from back in those days. And he gave me his. He said, any customers call, just give them an update where I was going to be at. Well, I was working for Dan Deemer, which my plan was, to stay. Dan Deemer, wonderful boss. I progressed with him quite rapidly too at the same time as far as minimum wage was in relation to how much money I was making.
Right.
I was making very good money working for Dan.
Nice.
For the time that I here in Las Cruces.
Okay.
And but I had responsibilities, and
Sure.
to make money, comes with responsibilities.
Sure.
It's not that
Absolutely.
complicated. And so the more responsibilities you get put on yourself, you get awarded by creating more income, which made a lot of sense. And I was leaving the job site one day, and my salesman from Ross and Builder Supply was going to meet me at the job site to order some doors that we were remodeling. We were doing a remodeling job, and so I'm in my brother's motorcycle. Came around the corner, and Mike catches me, and we go to the job site and we order the interior doors. And then Mike asked me at the same time, he goes, hey, listen, we're looking for a salesman at Ross and Builder Supply. I told my boss, Mike O'Hara's boss was Doug Campbell, says, if you get a chance next time you're at Rawson's, go by and talk to Doug. And I, at first, that was not my cup of tea.
Right.
I know that I enjoyed.
We're going to have to take a short break.
Yes,
Hold
sir.
that thought. You're now approaching possibly working for Rawson Builders, and we'll come back to that.
Okay.
Stay tuned, folks. We'll be right back with Robert W. Lewis, contractor, local businessman, very successful fella. So we'll be back shortly.
Horizon Granite is here.
It's here. Horizon Granite is here. We'll come to you to customize your kitchen and bathroom with beautiful countertops and cabinets. Find out more at horizongranite.com. Call us at 575-650-3180.
Horizon Granite is here.
It's here.
Make yourself a beautiful home.
Hi, I'm Ray Baumberg with Here on Earth. I would like to invite you for a free hearing evaluation to our office. We've been here in southern New Mexico for 34 years helping people hear better.
They've stormed beaches and freed countries. They've raised our flag and our hope. They've been called leathernecks. They've been called devil dogs. But above all, they're called Marines.
Hi, folks. Welcome back to We the People. I'm Dave Gallus, your host, and we're here with my special guest, Robert W. Lewis, contractor, local Hispanic, made well in business, and Robert's telling us his history. So we've worked up, Robert, to the point where you're now, after your background as a child working in a business with your parents in Mexico, you've worked construction with 2 different companies, and now you're approached, I think, by the Rawson builders, Ben Rawson and Lee Rawson's builder. So tell us about that.
So Michael Hara tells me, he goes, next time you're at Rawson's, come by and Doug Campbell wants to talk to you. So I happen to be there at their office picking up some materials, and Doug approached me and asked me. So we went into his office and he talked to me. I was not very enthused about the salary because I was making very good money working for Dan Deemer at the time, and I was on top of the food chain in this business, so I didn't have to work physically as much, but I was working more mentally, overseeing the operation. And when I went home, after I spoke with Doug, I went home and I started thinking about it. I'm like, okay, I know the trade I've learned the trade working for Dan Deemer. So Rawson Builder supplies the materials in the construction industry and in the city of Las Cruces. They're a local company.
You know the labor end of it. You know the
Exactly.
management end of handling the men on the job.
Yes, sir.
And now you're talking about a new adventure.
Learning the trade, learning the industry of the windows and doors, materials, garage doors, storefront, commercial. So after speaking with my wife, I said, I'm going to go ahead and take the job. And it was a very difficult decision because working for Dan, wonderful boss. Right. I mean, and I was making very good income with him.
Your loyalty must have been tugging at you.
And I've always been loyal to my bosses. Yeah, that's probably one of my good traits.
Absolutely.
That I've always been loyal to them. And so I took on the job working at Rawson Builder Supply. The benefits was if you were a good salesman, the commission was.
Oh yeah.
So it was all based on commission. So your salary was it was a comfortable salary. But the commission end, depending on your initiative, your attitude, your personality, you want to wake up, and it's not being self-employed, but your success is going to be how well you're willing to determine and go work for, go to work.
And you've had the background too, as well, with the construction.
Correct.
So probably your former bosses are going to look to you if they want good deals on materials.
Correct.
Okay,
Exactly,
sure.
Right. And I knew on the construction side, now you're selling the materials. and you can also help people out at the same time.
Sure.
So, and one of my benefits is I was bilingual.
All right, that helps.
So that in this valley here, I
Yes.
mean, that was a plus. I mean, I sold, Jiminy Christmas, I don't know how many hundreds of thousands I sold to Mexico, because it was actually, I started on the counter working with Rossins, and then I progressed to going outside sales. And outside sales was a lot of fun. I mean, you met a lot of the GCs, you learn a lot about the industry. I focused a lot on the commercial side, because that's, if you're on commission, you're selling a residential lock for $25, $30 or $100, but a commercial lock, I mean, they start at $75 and then go up to $1,000.
Right.
So I also focused on working with Doug Campbell on the commercial end. Well, I was working on the commercial end. I didn't have a whole lot of experience in the construction industry on the commercial side, but I learned going on job sites and looking how things were being put up.
Okay.
And it came to me very simple. I mean, I could look at something and go, well, that makes sense. You know, being in the industry, you have to be three-dimensional. You have to be able to look at something from any direction. That came to me very simple. Not something that I learned. It was just, I don't know, it was a gift.
Well, it sounded like you had the background that built up towards that. So
Correct, right.
All your life experience led you to that end.
To that point. So doing the commercial, and I started looking around, you know, sticking my nose, and you know, and I thought the more I learned, the more it's going to help me out with my business.
Sure.
Now, at this point, I knew I was going to start my business. It was just a matter of when.
Okay.
And so I was at Rossins for, I believe, 3 to 4 years. I'm not really sure what the timeline was. But I ended up building myself a house. And while I was building my house at the same time, I worked with the bank, and I learned how the banking industry worked on the loan, and which was another big learning lesson.
Sure.
I built my house, got my contractor's license at the same time, and just one day, I went elk hunting. I'm a bow hunter, and I went elk hunting in Colorado for a week and came back and said, well, I'm going to do it.
It sounds like you're like me. When I need to really think something out, I go for a long walk.
Right.
Or you went for a hunt. I
I went for a hunt, and it made me just really say, okay, you have to do it.
Good.
And so I came back from my hunt, and I was ready, and then I realized, wait a minute, I have a mortgage. I'm like, caramba, I didn't think about that, you know. But between my wife and I, and we lived very simple. Between her and I, we knew we had enough income. But one of the best sources is I knew contacts. So when I started my business, I already knew a lot of people in the industry, and I just let them know, hey, listen, I'm going to be readily available if you need something done.
And they probably trusted you because of the work job that you did for them. Okay.
Yeah, and that's, and I hate to say it, but knock on wood, I'm 30 years I've been in business. I haven't had a day off yet. So thank you very much, Las Cruces.
Except for your hunt. Tell me, did you get an elk that time?
No, I did not.
That's
no,
okay. You did a lot of thinking.
We went to Colorado. We backpacked. We started at 10,000 feet. We backpacked 8 miles, and
Wow.
we had a wonderful time. Thank God we didn't kill one because we had to pack it out.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Well, if it was downhill, it might not be
exactly.
too
That
hard.
was
but-
the easy part. And
Well, we've got your background. Now, as a businessman in Las Cruces, we got about 5 minutes to go in the show. What is government doing wrong? What can they do better? To me, it seems like New Mexico is a welfare state. I look
Correct.
at Texas and I see a very successful state. Now, the fact that it's run by Republicans and New Mexico is run by Democrats, I'll leave it up to the audience to decide what the problem is there. But it seems like we're not interested in employing people here or
Correct.
helping out businesses. We're interested in putting people on welfare.
Correct.
For their vote, maybe, I don't know. But so you tell me, what, from a businessman's point of view, what could be done that could help the business community and even the labor community?
Yes, and you know, I started very small, and my biggest cost was always following the economy. When I was working for Ross and Builder Supply, I noticed the economy went up and it went down, and it went up and it went down. So when I started my business, I knew that I had to keep my overhead down to a minimal
Okay.
to follow the industry. But being in the trade, if you know the various sides of the trade, when residential slows down, commercial picks up. And that helped me out a lot, because when I was working for a lot of the builders, I wasn't working directly for myself.
Right.
Only several times that I actually built a house for a customer, I was working directly for myself. most of my work was always working for other builders.
Right.
And so I noticed when the residential side slowed down, the commercial side would pick up. Commercial side slowed down, residential picked up. So I learned how to balance myself on those two. And I educated myself on the commercial side by actually overseeing and going into job sites when I was working for Awesome Builder Supply. So I taught myself how to do the commercial side. I understood the hollow metal doors, but I lived in the county, and most of my work was done in the city. And the city, over the years, the city got more difficult to work with.
Because of regulations?
Regulations, exactly. I mean,
Taxes.
Taxes, trying to pull a permit, too much.
Yeah.
Blah, 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 blah. Paper trail. When I first started, it was very simple to walk in, pull a permit, and you actually socialized with the inspectors or whoever you were pulling a permit.
Sure.
Now the city wants us to do everything, but I don't understand what the employees are doing working at the city then, at the permit department. If we're doing all the legwork, it makes no sense because they want everything electronically.
Right.
Well, there's a lot of people in this town that don't know how to use a computer.
Right.
And a lot of people don't even care to learn how to use a computer because they're saying the city provides an employee and it's his responsibility to give me that permit. It's not up to me. See how that works?
Well, I know it seems like the more technical we get, the more we distance ourselves from really touching
Correct.
hands with people.
Correct.
I know in, again, Texas and New Mexico has twice as many government employees per person as Texas.
Correct.
It's like you're way heavy on the bureaucracy, on the
Correct.
employment of the government, and you're not putting it back in the hands of the people, the construction workers, and who will employ more people.
Correct.
If you get a break on construction, whether it's regulations or taxes, you can hire more people and more people and more people. So you've educated yourself, and that's where your gold is right there.
Correct.
Your education, you've wanted that education. Probably a lot of people aren't as educated as you as going up through the ranks.
Correct.
But the government can help out, and the
Correct.
government's not doing it.
Correct.
So,
Yeah.
well, we got about 1 minute left. This has been a great show.
Thank you for having me on.
Oh, it's been my pleasure. Is there any parting information that you could give or suggestion? To me, the answer is education.
Correct.
Understand what's going on in politics. Understand what's going on at the county, city meetings, the county commission meetings, the state level committees, if you can make it to Santa Fe. It's all about education.
Well, my biggest agenda is we need to get involved. We need to get involved as business owners, get involved. I live in the city now. I built a house in the city. And one of the reasons that I'm getting involved is because I'm tired of the bureaucracy.
Okay.
I want to get the local businessmen, the ones that are paying the taxes, the ones that are working out there, to get involved to change the agenda of what's going on at the city.
So it seems like the answer is get involved.
We need to get involved, and especially the self-employed need to get involved.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
and the Hispanic community, which I'm trying to, well, you were
Correct.
teasing me before the show. Did you learn your Spanish yet? Well, I'm working on it.
Yes, sir.
Poquito. But Robert, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so
Thank you
much.
very much. Appreciate it.
Robert W. Lewis, contractor, Hispanic contractor in Las Cruces, Diana County. Give him some business, folks. You won't be sorry you did. This is Dave Gallus saying goodbye till next week.